Now, this whole concept of labeling the new coronavirus variant that has been running abundant in India and calling it the Indian variant is not really something that is, well, running off well when it comes to the Indian government as well a lot of the people in India. It's kind of offensive, just like, well, the Wuhan virus, but considering that the Chinese government could have been complacent in the whole spreading of the pandemic in the first place, it's still touch and go as to whether calling it the Indian variant or not is actually good. I mean, the WHO itself has stated that it's as the Indian variant earlier. Now it's going to instead opt for the scientific name and urges everyone else to do so. Egypt has sent 30 tons of aid to India. Now, India has been on the receiving end of aid from across the spectrum. Numerous countries of the world have gone out of their way to show their solidarity and their support with India. And, well, hats off to them, because India was one of the first nations to, well, go out of its way to supply vaccines to the rest of the world. Now, the rest of the world is coming to the help of India, with Egypt's tons of medical aid that consists of 8,000 vials of remdesivir, 300 oxygen cylinders, 50 oxygen concentrators. And this just goes to show that these supplies are an affirmation of the strength of the historical ties, strategic partnerships, and relationships, as was put forth in a statement by the Egyptian embassy. A reflection of what the conditions are like is this story right here. Delhi airports shut down at T2 terminal. An entire terminal that used to be packed day in and day out now been shut down. The only one accepting flights. We've gone down from 1500 flights a day to around 325 flights a day, which is rather humbling when you understand the actual effect of the pandemic. We have to talk about what's going on between Israel and Palestine. The Israeli Defense Forces put out a statement dictating that they've eliminated key Hamas intelligence figures, and everything just went off from there on. We saw numerous missiles being launched in the vicinity of Israel, with a humongous cost to life, cost to property. And retaliation, the Israeli Defense Forces went all out in terms of their attacks on Gaza, strategic strikes with drones. Over 1,050 rockets were fired from Gaza Strip on Monday. Israel's Iron Dome defense has been everywhere, even on Twitter. Well, it turns out that upwards of 500 targets were launched by the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, back into Gaza, and they made contact. A lot of infighting is ensuing between the Palestinians that are residing in Israel upon Israel's latest move in order to, well, breach into all-out conflict when it comes to cross-border engagements. These attacks have killed 35 people in Gaza, 5 people in Israel. And what we also understand is the fact that a rocket hit an Indian woman's home, an Indian woman who was residing in Israel for upwards of 7 years. 30-year-old Soumya Santosh was on a video call with her husband back home when a rocket hit her house in Israel and killed her. This is devastating news to understand the fact that the greater quotient of these people not comprehending where things might just end up going is sad to begin with, but ignorant to say nevertheless, because the cost of human life is not something that can be just written off as collateral damage anymore. Kerala CM Pinayari Vijayan on Wednesday promised that the government is in touch with the Indian embassy in Jerusalem and is trying to ensure that the mortal remains of the 30-year-old woman are brought back to her hometown so that the remains can be handed over to the family. It's devastating to understand that someone who resided in the country for 7 years is taken out by extremists like that, and this is going to paint a whole different narrative. And because Pakistan has affiliated itself with Palestine, you can best believe what is coming next in terms of a response from India. 45 billion in the span of 48 hours. 45 billion, 48 hours, man, where do I sign up? The bottom line being, a cryptocurrency called internet computer, out of everything on the face of the planet, is now worth $45 billion. And this virtual currency was funded by Definity's Dominic Williams and uses smart contracts or software programs that execute tasks, essentially something like Ethereum. The whole story about India getting 5G and 5G ever coming to India is going to be something more than just stories at this point in time. The recent move by India to ban 5G trials from Chinese companies and instead have these trials played out by other means is a decision that is a sovereign decision, and that has been highlighted by the United States. What we understand is that the US State Department spokesperson Ned Price said that they were deeply concerned about the dangers of installing networks with equipment that can be potentially controlled by the People's Republic of China. He added that the United States has designated Huawei and ZTE as national security threats, and India should do the same. Google Pay users can now officially receive money from people in the US. In the middle of a pandemic, what we understand is the fact that if you need money from people in the States now, you can merely ask them to GPay you and it will arrive to you without hassle. Currency conversion rates that would take place and the amount of brokerage fees that you had to give to Western Union and all of that stuff, it doesn't make sense. We understand that the global remittance market is worth $470 billion, which was essentially the reason why this move has come in the first place, but nevertheless, it's a very essential one. Moving on to the fact that Dogecoin and Tesla are going to be hand in hand. Elon Musk asking his followers on Twitter that should Tesla, accept Dogecoin to buy their products, and overwhelming response dictated that the future of buying things from Tesla is going to be Dogecoin. After the whole SNL debacle, it's nice, it's refreshing for someone who's put money into Doge that Elon is still high on the bandwagon. Now this is one that was rather disappointing to me. Ellen DeGeneres has ended her talk show after 19 years, and I grew up watching Ellen, so I understand what this must be like for someone who's lived their life in correlation to Ellen DeGeneres and listening to her preach day in and day out about all the good things. But when the controversy came out about her treating her staff members like absolute trash and creating a toxic workplace, it was inevitable that she got cancelled, and she did just that. She got cancelled. 19 years of being on the air could not save her from being cancelled. And the only remaining celebrity who has successfully navigated the waters of a daily talk show and left on top was Oprah Winfrey, and will always be Oprah Winfrey. Einstein's letter containing his famous equation of E equals mc square has finally gone up to sale, and a lot of people might essentially put in a ton of money behind acquiring this letter that has the equation or and such, but the people who understand the fact that the true value of what was written on that piece of paper is never going to be contained to the amount of zeros you can put behind a paycheck. E equals mc square changed physics, changed the contemplation of what we understood as possible, or what the possibilities were back then. You can never put an amount to that and understand that the value of what knowledge was portrayed by Einstein can never be bought out. A giant frog, almost as big as a human kid, was found in the Solomon Islands. I wonder how far it can jump. But the frog is believed to be a conifer guppy frog. It scares me. I do not want to understand it. But what I do know is these people are probably going to end up eating it. It's probably going to taste like chicken. I mean, I don't know if it will, but maybe it will, maybe it won't, who knows. I'm not waiting to find out.